Let's get started. So hello everyone, thank you very much for joining our very first Emerging Leaders in Sustainable Aviation event today, or ELSA as we're affectionately calling the network. Today we've got some awesome speakers on the line and I'll be introducing them shortly. But first I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the network since this is our first event. So I'm going to tick through a couple of slides and then hand over to our speakers. But before we dive into that, just a heads up, the event is being recorded today and it will be posted on our YouTube afterwards. So if you have any friends or colleagues who weren't able to join the session, feel free to let them know that they can watch it afterwards. So ELSA was founded in September this year at the ICAO Innovation Fair in Montreal with a vision to empower the next generation of aviation leaders with the knowledge and connections that they need to build a more resilient and sustainable aviation sector. This was a little idea that I had just a couple of years ago, back when I lived in New Zealand, and I'm very excited to see it come into fruition today with this event and at the launch a few weeks ago. So we had a group of about 12 of us that were working on this initiative for 6 months alongside ATAG. And we're very happy to have the launch at the ICAO event. And now the idea is that the network is a place for our young leaders in the industry to connect with one another and the current leaders of the industry so that we can pass on knowledge and build skills and build up a network. So we're ready to step into the large shoes that they're going to leave behind them. So we'll do this by hosting events such as this one. We plan to host events roughly once per quarter, and over time looking to introduce some more in-person events alongside existing industry events, and also looking to introduce other initiatives such as mentoring as well. So this is really just the kickoff, and we're very excited to have you with us for this event today. We also have quite a strong online presence. So we have our website, which is hosted on the ATAG platform, where you can find out a lot of information about us. This is the best way to stay up to date with all of our different events and activities, as well as to sign up to our newsletter, which will also be sent out once per quarter with lots of different information and highlights on young professionals and leaders in the industry. We then have our ELSA email, so you can see it up on the screen there, hello@elsa-network.org. That's one of the best ways to get in touch with us if you have any questions. And then we have our LinkedIn page, which has been very active. We're very pleased to say that we already have over 560 people on LinkedIn. So it's already starting to be a strong community there, and we're very happy to have you all. If you haven't signed up to any of these, then I'd encourage you to scan the QR codes, or otherwise you can find all the links on the website. So just give that a search on the ATAG page. This is our executive committee. I really wanted to make sure that all of their faces were put up on screen today because they're really the team that has made this happen. So as I said at the start, we've had 12 of us that have been working on it for about 6 months before the launch. And then since going live, we've all continued to build our ELSA into what it becomes in the next year or two. So we have a good representation from across the industry, and yeah, in particular, I want to highlight Anna, who's our events lead, and who's done a fantastic effort in pulling today together. But it's all been done with support of the entire team that you see up here on the screen. So thank you very much to everyone for that. I'm now going to pass over to Haldane Dodd, who's the Executive Director of ATAG. And just before I do that, I want to say a big thank you to the ATAG team for their support and belief in ELSA. It started out as a little idea, and yeah, with their help, we've managed to build out this executive committee and the activities that we have today. But over to Haldane to say a few words on the relationship there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy, for introducing me and thank you to both you and the whole team for all the work that you've done pulling ELSA together. It's been a really impressive thing to watch from the sidelines, and very, very happy to support that, not only from the ATAG team, but also the ATAG board as well, who were really very much behind this, because it's such an important part of our future work program, as well as making sure that we have the skills needed to undertake the enormous effort that we've got ahead of us. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you also to Nathalie, Jim and Jimmy for joining us for this first Soar into Tomorrow event. And I'd like to take this opportunity to also give a special congratulations to Jimmy and the LanzaJet team on the Freedom Pines announcement. Really fantastic news there, and a major milestone, I'd say, not only for LanzaJet, but also for the whole industry in making sure that we have options available to us for SAF scale up around the world. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about that later on from Jimmy. So for those of you who don't know, ATAG is the global organization bringing together all different parts of the aviation value chain, from airlines to airports, air navigation service providers, OEMs, SAF producers, and everything in between. We all share a vision of ensuring that air transport can continue to connect the world, support economic and social development in the decades to come, but also respect the commitment to climate action that's underlined by the Paris Agreement, and also the work that's been taking place at ICAO over the last decade and a half or so. And of course, when Amy approached me earlier this year with the idea of creating a network for emerging leaders, and I saw it as a extremely valuable initiative to try and rally those young professionals around the net zero transition and the future of our industry that I think we're also passionate about. Young professionals are critical, and the decarbonisation of our industry will be shaped by the decisions that all of you make in the coming 10, 20, 30 years, far beyond when some of us have retired away. We're going to need to have that leadership continue and really boost the efforts that we can make. So I just returned from COP30 in Brazil, where the world's overall decarbonisation efforts were being discussed. They're incredibly tough talks. And I'd say fairly mediocre outcome at COP30 shows how difficult that process really is. And it's true to say that aviation faces one of the more complex decarbonisation challenges of any sector. But I would also say that over the last years, the pace of action has really accelerated. So not only have we got the net zero commitment from the entire industry, but also ICAO's long-term goal that came out of that. The CAF3 agreement came out a year later. And of course, we're seeing more and more announcements and investment in SAF, in research around hydrogen and electric, advanced aircraft design, airport energy transition, ATC optimization. There's a huge amount of work going on. And so real projects, real infrastructure, real capital is being deployed already. We need to make sure that that can continue and accelerate even faster. But learning from each other is one of the key parts of that story as well. The financing, the infrastructure is really necessary, but it's not by itself sufficient. We need to make sure that the mindset of our leaders and you as future leaders is able to really live up to this challenge as well. So I'd say maybe 3 qualities essential for the next generation. First of all, to understand how policy, energy, finance, and technology interlock and work together to make this enormous challenge of net zero carbon happen. I'd say collaboration over competition. The energy transition requires working together across companies, across sectors and organizations. It's all about rolling up our sleeves and making that change happen. That's what ATAG is all about, collaboration. And we also kind of want you to be impatient. We want you to push us on all fronts for scaling up SAF, new technologies, for research, for operational improvements. We need new ideas. We need to make sure that governments, the finance industry, and traditional energy companies, importantly, come on board. We also need you to ask the right questions and drive this transition with the sense of urgency that it needs. Our journey in aviation to net zero carbon emissions is creating entirely new career paths and opportunities for you. I can't imagine that sustainability professionals in aviation were a thing 20 years ago. And of course, we're now seeing more and more airlines and airports have chief sustainability officers, which is a fantastic example of how even at the highest corporate levels, there are sustainability ideas being put into decision making. So that's a really important shift. We just need to make sure that that happens even more as we go forward. And I think that ELSA provides that platform to build the networks early, use them to shape the future of the industry. So we need ideas, we need your leadership and your urgency. And I'm looking forward to seeing how ELSA evolves over time and answers the call that we and I think the world more broadly have on us to make sure that this happens. So with that, opening sort of thoughts, I'm handing back to Amy and looking forward to listening to the discussion ahead.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Haldane. I really appreciated your point on impatience. I think it's a skill that I have and something that I think would like to use the ELSA platform as something that can really push the industry forward from the impatience from our young professionals. So yeah, thank you very much for the ATAG support and guidance, in particular to yourself and Felix, who's been a key part of our committee as well. Yeah, thank you for everything, and we're looking forward to continuing to work together.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And I'm now realizing that I started the call without properly introducing myself. So I'm going to just quickly do that before I hand over to our other speakers to introduce themselves today. So I'm Amy Strang. My day job is actually with Airbus. I work as an environment and sustainability marketing manager for Airbus, where basically I work with airlines on their environmental roadmaps and strategies. But ELSA is really something that's kind of an add-on to my day job and something that I do as a bit of a passion project. So I'm very pleased to be the chair of the ELSA Executive Committee. And yeah, you saw all the faces of the committee before. I've got a fantastic team behind me. But now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speakers properly to the panel. So today we have Jimmy Samartzis, who's CEO of LanzaJet. We have Nathalie Herbelles, who's VP Industry Affairs and Sustainability at ACI World. And we have Jim Hileman, who's VP and Chief Engineer Sustainability and Future Mobility at Boeing. So a fantastic lineup of speakers. And I'm going to give them all a couple of minutes to introduce themselves properly, and then we'll dive into the question and answer session. So Jimmy, would you like to go first?
Yeah, happy to. And thanks, Amy, for the kind introduction. And to all of you, glad to be here with you today. I actually wish such a program existed a long time ago when I was getting going in sustainability. So it's great that we're doing this today. Just by way of introduction, I've been at this now for about 17 years. I started in sustainability and SAF in particular in 2008, way before we actually had some real traction in the industry on it. And it's been quite the journey over that period of time. My career in this space started when I was with United Airlines, leading sustainability and corporate responsibility for the airline. And then SAF and environmental policy became a part of that job as well, and led me to where I am today as the founding CEO of LanzaJet. As Haldane mentioned, we had a significant milestone a couple of weeks ago where we brought our commercial scale plant into full operation and produced on-spec SAF and renewable diesel from ethanol as the feedstock. And the beautiful part about that is we can make ethanol from just about anything. It's a great building block molecule, as we say. But just in terms of my background, pre-SAF days, if you will, I started my career in politics. I worked at the White House for President Clinton, and then worked in strategy consulting with firms like Booz Allen, Hamilton, and Oliver Wyman. So glad to be here today. Thrilled that the industry is doing this, and looking forward to it. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, and congratulations again on the big piece of news. I'll pass over to Nathalie next.
Thanks, Amy, and good day to everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to attend this webinar. Honored to be among these great panelists, and I really look forward to an engaging discussion, because you don't need old people to tell you what young people need and want. So I just want to hear from you guys today. But in terms of my background, I've been in industry affairs and advocacy in the aviation industry for my whole career. That's over 20 years. I started in Europe with the Association of European Airlines right after 9/11. Did a lot of aviation security work, and then moved to IATA to take security and facilitation roles in Asia Pacific and in Montreal before moving to ACI 7 years ago now. Time flies. So I'm not actually a sustainability expert, but I'm lucky to have a fantastic team of sustainability experts in my team. We're a team of 5 people at ACI World Industry Affairs and Sustainability who represent airports' interests in sustainability, and it's great actually that Asta and Casey are part of the executive committee of ELSA. Really happy that they're contributing, and definitely I have a very young team, and that's fantastic. So I think that's enough for me for now, Amy.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. It's great to have the airport's view that you bring on the call today. Last but not least, we have Jim Hileman from Boeing. Jim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Happy to do so, Amy, and thanks to you and the other ELSA leadership team for organizing this. Jim Hileman, I've been with Boeing now 2.5 years. I head up work on advanced technology development around sustainability. Prior to that, I was with the FAA as a chief scientist for environment and energy for over 11 years. So I was leading a pretty significant research program there and was directly engaged in a number of efforts, creating the rules around CORSIA for fuels, including SAF and low-carbon aviation fuels, led to development of the U.S. Aviation Climate Action Plan. Prior to that, I was at MIT for a number of years as research staff, and got to work on a lot of great projects, including one way back in 2006 to evaluate the viability of alternative fuels. The faculty member I was working with at the time told me I'd work on this for a few months and then go off and do something else. Lo and behold, 20 years later, I'm still working the area, the issues. It's really a pleasure to talk to people who are start to believe on the other end of things, since I'm closer to being one of the old crusty folks. But it's really an honor, and I look forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim. And we're very honored to have you here today. And if I'm allowed to say it, I think it's awesome that we have both Airbus and Boeing involved. It's a great example of the 2 big OEMs coming together on a common goal. So very happy to have you here on the call with us today, Jim. A couple of quick housekeeping points. So everyone on the call, bar our speakers, has probably noticed by now that you're on mute. That is intentional, but you will be put off mute later in the session. This is just so we don't have disruptions throughout the session. Some of you have already found it, but we have a Q&A box on Gmeet, which we're going to use. So if you have any questions, please provide them there. You can find it through the little dots in the bottom right corner, and then there's a Q&A button. Following the panel, we're going to have a networking session, which some of our speakers are available to join as well. So you'll be split randomly into breakout rooms. We'll give a few more instructions at the time, but that will really be your chance to actually network with one another, which is the goal of ELSA really, is to create these connections. So that will be your chance to actually interact with each other's and our speakers and our ELSA executive committee as well. And then finally, we will be providing some feedback from at the end of the event. This is our first one, we've said it already, but we're very keen to learn and to hear from all of you on this call today about what you'd like to see with the future ELSA events. So please take some time to provide us with feedback. That's all for the housekeeping. So I'm going to dive right into our first question now. And the first question is actually for all of our panelists. So I'll ask that they each give a kind of 2 or 3 minute answer to this one. We want to think actually beyond the technological advancements for this question and thinking more about the mindset shifts or leadership qualities that you think are most crucial for truly accelerating sustainability in aviation. And I guess since it's also we're talking about emerging leaders, so for our young professionals, what do you think are those leadership qualities and mindset shifts that are going to make the difference in the future? Who would like to start? Jimmy, would you like to go first?
Happy to. So listen, I think from my perspective, and maybe it's because of where I've grown up here in the United States, but I do work across the globe at this point. Sustainability generally has to create value, and that must be clear beyond just the sustainability of what we're trying to do, right? There are certain markets around the world where there's sort of an implicit kind of desire to do the right thing, and that is to do things in a more sustainable way. Generally, that's challenged, I would say, right, on a global basis, and especially here in the United States, right? I wish every individual operated with more of a sustainability-oriented mindset, right? But that's not the case. So ensuring that when we're talking about sustainability or things that we're trying to do related to sustainability, having that tie back to the value that we're creating by focusing on that, I think is super important. Just to give you an example from my past life, right, when I was at the airline, I actually created a sustainability council that brought together all the business leaders across the airline to talk about why sustainability matters, why it matters to our corporate customers, why it matters to stickiness from a loyalty perspective, and so on. Worked hard at creating value beyond, hey, this is just the right thing to do, or it's the thing that we have to do because we're being mandated to do it, right? And the same thing today applies when we do work across the globe. In certain parts of the world, there are other reasons why we do these things. In some cases, it might be because there's economic development opportunity in a rural part of the country that might create value. So in other countries, it might be because of a national security or energy security concern that we sort of focus on developing the SAF industry. So my point is, sustainability altruistically is a great thing, but how do we also attach value to it that resonates with the different stakeholders that you need to talk to? The other piece I would say, and not to take up too much time, is you can't let setbacks set us back, right? There's lots of setbacks. Every step of the way, we're going to have challenges in front of us and obstacles in front of us. The key is to not let those setbacks hold us back from continuing to do the right work. In our company at LanzaJet, we've had setback after setback, obstacle after obstacle since we were founded. We always found a way to overcome those challenges and to find a path forward. I think that's key in terms of a mind shift change that is required for us to be successful broadly, right, in this world of sustainability that we're all in. So maybe, Amy, I'll just leave it at that for now and let others chime in as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I really like the piece around setbacks. It's something that we found even setting up ELSA. It's obviously a much smaller scale, but it's still a little startup. And yeah, you've just got to keep pushing forwards to get new ideas up and running. Natalie or Jim, was there anything that resonated on that with you, or who would like to go next? Natalie?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I really like what Jimmy just said about, really making sure sustainability is understood beyond just doing the right thing and finding the right arguments to appeal to different audiences, right? And I think it's true now more than ever. We have so many headwinds around sustainability, right? We're only 10 years since the Paris Agreement, and this COP was, quite poorly attended, and Haldane mentioned it was a mediocre one by many standards. U.S. administration was absent. A lot of big CEOs were noticeably absent. We even had, people who were strong climate advocates like Bill Gates publish a blog post for COP attendees just a few days before the event. Basically, I mean, if you read this simplistically, Bill Gates is seems to be going back on his climate advocacy, but actually what he's trying to do is to put it in the bigger picture of the need for funding for health and development and human development. And I think this raises important, interesting questions beyond the simplistic interpretation of, oh, these tech people don't want to do sustainability anymore. And I think, to Jimmy's point, that's going to be the main shift that we all need to do, is to really see, environmental sustainability and this whole holistic vision of sustainability for planet, people, and economic development. So it's a very, very complex picture. As Haldane mentioned as well, it's great to see that aviation is still staying the course of reaching net zero by 2050. At the last ICAO assembly, this was reconfirmed. I think what people are going to need eventually, leaders in this sector, is courage, is commitment, because those headwinds, this backtracking is going to keep happening. So you need to find the right arguments with the right audience to continue to explain that sustainability is needed, and the next 10 years are really going to be critical.
Yeah, thanks, Nathalie. Jim, it looks like you're ready to go, so I'll let you dive straight in.
Thanks, Amy. So it's a good question, one that you could come at a number of ways. I'm going to start with what people in ELSA can be doing. So yeah, sustainability is a wicked hard problem. It's the problem of our generation, of our lifetime. So great, what can you do about it? So what I would say is that you need to be open-minded. You need to be willing to think about this from other people's perspectives. And that could be, I'm a mechanical engineer by training, but I learned that the solution space has to come from chemical engineering. So I picked that up along the way. It involves, the intersection of technology and policy, did that along the way. But for all of us, it's just, being willing to listen to others, understand where they're coming from, see how you can tackle the problem from a variety of perspectives. And that also then includes, okay, so I live in the US, a number of us are, from Europe or the US. Okay, the rest of the world matters tremendously in this discussion. How do we bring them along for the ride? And, it just requires a lot of open-minded thinking. The other thing that's critical here is that while, some parts of the world may be willing, to pay a tremendous amount for decarbonization, that's not true everywhere. And it's not going to be true over time. Okay, so there's currently, one administration running the US and other parts of the world. Administrations change. This is a very long-term problem. So we need to, think through this space very patiently, and, from a variety of perspectives. So I would just ask all of us, to think about it from not just your own set of shoes, but from others as well. And never be afraid to take on a challenge, because that's the way we're going to get through this.
Thanks very much, Jim. And I think what I'm hearing from all of the speakers is that we need to have a level of flexibility and the ability to kind of see setbacks as potential opportunities and to be able to keep moving forward, even if the conversation and the way that we potentially talk about some of these issues changes along the way. So keeping that open mind. We've got speakers from a range of different industries within aviation on the call today. So we're actually going to have a question that's kind of dedicated to each of their industries now. We're going to start with you, Jimmy, again, focusing on the SAF industry. We want to know what the top 3 lessons you've learned, both professionally and potentially personally, along the way of scaling LanzaJet. So yeah, what can you teach us, young professionals who might be aspiring to do similar things in the future?
Yeah, thanks for that. Listen, I think I'd start off by saying this is incredibly hard, right? When I talk publicly about the work we're trying to do and that we do, we talk about evolving an 80-year-old fossil fuel industry, right? Getting folks to pivot from pulling carbon out of the ground to using carbon already above ground, and trying to do a lot of things for the first time, right? So when you think about building a SAF industry, at least when I think about it, I think about an ecosystem that has to all work together. So the technology in its foundation, right, has to work, right? We have to be able to sort of use something other than crude oil to produce a drop-in fuel. So the core technology has to fundamentally work. And in our case, our technology of alcohol-to-jet checks that box, right? We've gotten it to work at a commercial scale over 15 years of development. You need policy to fall into place and be supportive in the right way, and that varies across the world. You need capital to come in at different stages of growth to fund technology advancements and projects, and a different sort of risk appetite around how to deploy capital. You need the demand from airlines to be there to buy the fuel and use the fuel, and then you need entities, whether the corporation or the individual, to want to pay the premium, because there is a premium associated with it, right? So when you think about this ecosystem on a global basis, it's awfully complex, and getting to time that right is difficult, right? There's not a master puppeteer, there's not a master conductor that's sort of orchestrating all of this, and it comes down to those of us that are pushing hard to make this change happen, to find ways to bring partners along the way to bring this to life, right? So that's hard, and I think that's a lesson I've learned, not just since I took on this role at LanzaJet, but since my early days in the SAF industry, going back to 2008. Another lesson, which people oftentimes talk to, in our case, absolutely real, right? The people are key. Our people at our company at LanzaJet, absolutely, instrumental to our success. When you think about our commercial scale plant, which is in a small rural town called Soperton, Georgia, here in the United States, motivating those individuals to bring new technology online for the first time, working through every issue imaginable that sort of came up, feeling motivated to do that when there were setbacks, every other day, is super important. And same thing, going back to what I said earlier about setbacks, right? Generally, our people are listening to what is our current president saying, right? What is this big oil company doing? And all those things on an individual basis might seem like there's momentum moving away from us, right? But then when you look at the broader environment in the aggregate, there's a ton of momentum in our favor, right? As an industry and as a company and as a SAF, it's people focusing on SAF. So, keeping my people and our people at the company motivated along the way is super important. What I will tell you is, the mission orientation of our company is very, very strong. And, that in and of itself attracts a certain kind of individual that joins us, who appreciates, I think, the journey that they're on. But as a leader, right, I feel an obligation to, one, be open and honest with our folks, but also consistently motivate them to continue on with the journey and continue to push forward. The last thing I'll say is needing true partners along the way. We feel quite blessed that we have a great group of investors that are alongside us on this journey. They're not just folks that provided financial capital to our company, but they are, organizations and companies that are with us to support building the industry. If you go back to what I said at the beginning around building this ecosystem and how hard that is, we actually very intentionally have chosen to bring on investors and companies that we feel can help us build this industry, right? They all have an important role to play across the entire value chain. So I get to count among them. Airbus, frankly, is one of our investors in the company, as is Shell, Microsoft, British Airways, IAG now as well, the parent company of British Airways, Southwest Airlines, Group ADP on the airport side, MUFG Bank, one of the world's largest banks, as an investor in our company. We've oftentimes, Jim, worked with Boeing just in a different capacity, not as an investor in our company, but on our projects. So we value partnerships tremendously, right? These are all organizations that know we'll have ups and downs, and who are there alongside us to help us figure out how to overcome those obstacles, and who have a long-term view on how to build the industry and be successful. So Amy, I'll stop there again in terms of my perspective, at least on the SAF industry at this point.
Thanks, Jimmy. That's super interesting. I liked your point around the strong mission. I think that's why many of us are working in the sustainability space within aviation, is because we all feel that purpose and that drive to do things a little bit differently from how they've been done in the past. And then also partnership is so important as well. Without the partnership of ATAG for ELSA, we wouldn't have grown anywhere near as quickly. So yeah, I can definitely understand your points, and yeah, thank you for sharing those. We're going to dive into the airports sector now. And Nathalie, I was wondering, considering the complexity of the airport operations, what do you see as some of the kind of key challenges and opportunities for leaders in 2050? Perhaps even earlier than that. What are you seeing today, and how does that translate into 2050?
Yeah, I think, Amy, the word complexity is definitely the theme in terms of the challenges that we're going to face, but I do see a few opportunities related to it. We do live in a complex world, and that world is only going to become more complex in the next decades. There is not one dominant power. The world is multipolar. There's not one source of information. Information now comes from everywhere, not just traditional media. Truth is probably multipolar. There is not a main source of energy. It's no longer fossil fuels like in the 20th century, really representing the vast majority of energy consumption, and rightly so. We're transitioning, but to really different sources and types of energies, including renewables. There are more types of aircraft in aviation entering the space, entering the market, drones, RPAS, eVTOL. And so all of that is complexity. And airports themselves are complex machines, endeavors. They're multidimensional, right? And I think the mistake perhaps we often make, and I also came from an aviation background into airports, is to assume that airports are purely within the aviation ecosystem. And that's not true. Airports are actually much more than an aviation player. They are deeply linked and embedded in their local communities, their local environment, cities, ground transportation, fuel and energy, access to the grid, construction. There's also huge construction involved. So when it comes to sustainability, we really can't just see, the share of transportation and aviation as within our scope in terms of emissions reductions and mitigation. It's really about seeing the whole thing as a dynamic, complex ecosystem. And so I think what we need to do more in the next decades is to really see things through systems thinking and this multifaceted approach. You guys, many of you are probably in environment teams, sustainability teams, but you're probably finding out that the buck doesn't stop there. And a lot of the decisions that need to be taken need to be done, certainly at airports, with operations, with safety, with infrastructure, with investment, insurance, facilitation, you name it. And I think the key, and my key advice, I think, to young and emerging leaders is really to expand your horizons. I think it's great to build your expertise in sustainability. Green skills are huge, and they're still what we're going to need. But I think do take the time to envisage lateral moves in your career into other parts of the aviation ecosystem that are not necessarily just sustainability, could be operational or others, and actually just to jump out of the industry as well. And this is an advice I have not given myself. I've stayed within the aviation sector. But if I could do things differently, and I think that's your next question, but I would look outside the sector and build expertise outside of it. We miss some of those skill sets that are really going to help us crack a lot of difficult problems in the next years. So, building an expertise in tech, in ground transportation, in energy certainly, and coming back to work in an airport, in aviation, in a manufacturer, can only enhance your power as a leader.
Thanks, Nathalie. I 100% agree with what you're saying, because that's something I've done myself, moving from land transport initially, then into Air New Zealand, and then eventually into Airbus. And some of those were definitely more lateral than upwards moves, but they've played a massive role in getting me to where I am today. And I think, Jim, you also have experience moving across kind of different parts of the industry. And my question for you is actually around the complex challenge that is decarbonizing aviation, and the collaboration that's therefore needed across the different sectors of the industry. So we know that you've got experience in academia and government and now at Boeing. And I'd like to know how you identify, or what you identify as the primary challenges for being able to achieve decarbonization. And then, I guess, from the Boeing perspective, how can aircraft manufacturers facilitate the necessary collaboration to be able to address these challenges effectively? It's quite a lot that goes into that one. So.
It's all right. It's a complicated problem, as we've discussed. So the solution, okay, so the solution to the decarbonization aspects of sustainability is rather straightforward regardless of industry. Whatever you're doing, you need less energy, and whatever energy you're using, it needs to produce less net CO2 or less net climate impact. So it's as simple as that, but everything else is ridiculously hard. So from the standpoint of the energy, the solution space is not in aviation. The solution space is in energy. The solution space is in infrastructure. It's the challenge of the fact that our existing fueling network has, trillions of dollars put into it, and was developed over a century based on the simple fact that you can pump oil out of the ground and boil it, and over a certain range of temperature, that is jet fuel. That's the incumbent, that's the challenge, that's what we're working against. And the simple fact that we pull up aircraft at airports every day, pull them up to the hydrant, they get fueled up, and we know it's safe because we've been doing it for a long time. And anytime you want to replace an industry like that, it's really hard. You have to go into all the detail, all the stuff that, my grandparents put together and other people's grandparents put together, and then rethink that. That's really hard. So, we just need to accept that that's the challenge, and therefore the solution space has to come from far outside of the airplane, whether it's Embraer, Bombardier, Comac, Airbus, or Boeing. The solution space has to come out of the energy sector, out of the airports, in a collaboration among all of us, including the policymaker. And if the price tag is too high for the solution, policymaker's not going to go there. That's just a simple fact. So we need to figure out, how to do this at a reasonable price point. And that's the collective challenge that we're working toward. And, from more specifically from, a manufacturer perspective, some mundane things like putting aircraft out of the factory every day are critically important. And you can come up with the most amazing aircraft design ever, but if you can only make one of them a month, frankly, that's irrelevant. We need to be able to get to scale. We need to be able to get to scale, and that's true for the fuel, that's true for the airplane, that's true for the infrastructure. So as I said, you need to just think about this from other perspectives to understand why it's hard. And I agree with you. Going out of one sector to think from other perspectives is really helpful. But I'm very leery to have, all the brilliant people here leaving the aviation sector to go to other sectors. I'd recommend you stay here, because we need all the brilliant minds we can get helping aviation right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. I tend to agree. We're hoping that we can use ELSA to attract more talent into the industry, and it's great if they can go off for a year or two to get experience that they bring back. Hopefully everyone ends up in long-term careers in aviation. I know that that's my plan at least. We did have one more question for our speakers, but I actually want to dive into some of our audience questions because that is the idea of this call, really, is to give our members a chance to speak with our speakers. So I'm going to read out a few of those questions, and then maybe we can round out with the group question at the end. So Quinn has posted a question asking what part of aviation decarbonisation feels the most under-supported right now, and how can new professionals get involved across sectors to bring integrated solutions? Does anyone want to jump into that one?
Hey, Amy, I lost my network connection for a minute or two. Can you repeat that?
Yes, sure thing. One moment, I've just lost the question. What part of aviation decarbonisation feels the most under-supported right now, and how can new professionals get involved across sectors to bring integrated solutions?
I'm happy to take a stab at it. Yes, I think there is a lot of focus on sustainable aviation fuels, and I think Jimmy, I understand why. I think it's a hard to abate sector, and certainly fuels are going to play the biggest role in the mix, right? In reaching net zero. From an airport's perspective, I think something that has been neglected in policy perhaps are these airport-related parts, and in the basket of measures, perhaps the operational elements are perhaps the ones that we don't pay enough attention to and could benefit from incentives, from friendly policies. So really, when it comes to either making air navigation services more efficient, making sure taxiing and also just the operation of airports more efficient generally, that can play a big role, and it tends to be a little bit under the radar, and that's why at ACI we promoted the concept of energy access and the ability for airports to also generate their own energy at airports, their own electricity at airports, in order to power new entrants that are going to be electric, hybrid electric, in order to meet the growth in traffic and also to reach net zero. So this aspect of electricity access at airports and just airport operations generally is something I would say is perhaps underappreciated.
Yeah, I would say on this one, the thing that we need to be doing more of is thinking about how we leverage our existing infrastructure. Building stuff is much harder than anyone can imagine. The permitting process is brutal, and that's true everywhere in the world. Getting the resources necessary to build a very large energy production facility is also challenging. So if we want to move fast, we need to think about how we leverage what we have. That's the beauty of sustainable aviation fuel. It drops into the aircraft, drops in the pipeline, drops in. We need to be thinking about, from the production standpoint, how do we leverage the existing things we have? Paper and pulp mills, petroleum refineries, ethanol facilities, all of it. And that way we can have, a transition. And what I've seen in my career is that if you want a transition, it's best to bring the incumbent along for the ride. Otherwise, there's a lot of objection. And it might seem odd for somebody from Boeing to be talking about every other sector besides the aerospace manufacturer. But as I said, sustainability comes from the tank and the aircraft. So it's, again, you got to think outside of where you particularly work and have an open mind.
Thanks very much, Jim. Jimmy, was there anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, I'm going to try to. For some reason, I am having a network connection, so I caught half of what Jim said, and I caught most of what Nathalie said, which I agree with both of them. Maybe taking it in a slightly, different direction. We have a motto at our company, which is "Someday is now," and for me, at the heart of it, it is we have things that we can do today that we should absolutely do and take advantage of, and not wait for that silver bullet, if you will, that oftentimes takes our eye off the ball of what's available and what we can do today. Right. So leveraging the existing infrastructure is, as Jim mentioned, absolutely key, right? Having changes in air traffic control systems and flying planes differently and sort of, getting all the, carbon reduction that we can from doing those simple things, in my mind, relatively simple things, right? I know they're not, but it's super important. So, we also set a high bar sometimes. We set a bar that says, 50% or greater reduction in CI is what is minimally good enough. Why is that? Right? If we truly believe that, reducing our carbon impact as quickly as we can is super important, why isn't 20% or 30% good enough? And then we can continue to build towards 50, 60, 70, carbon negative types of ambitions, right? So for me, it's about what actions can we really take today to have an impact today, even though those impacts may not be as grandiose or as grand as we want them to be, but they're substantial and they're good enough, and we should get going with it because we're running out of time in many different ways. And having progress actually is probably the most helpful tool that we have, right? Showing the progress and showing the reductions today helps us sort of, continue to push forward, right, in the years ahead. So anyhow, just those thoughts, Amy, and hopefully that came through. I saw you guys flicker in and out a little bit as I was talking, so I'm not sure if it all came through, but hopefully it did.
We can hear you totally fine. So thanks very much for that, Jimmy. I think we've got time for a couple more quick questions. So one, which I think is quite interesting from an anonymous person, which is very mysterious. How do we ensure that we follow a unified strategy worldwide when we're seeing that some countries or institutes have varying viewpoints on what measures are suitable? So we're seeing some countries or institutes pushing for SAF, some are targeting air traffic management improvements and contrail avoidance. We're all working hard, but in different directions, and the division is holding us back, ... I'm wondering, maybe Jim, if you want to start on this one. I know that Boeing, like Airbus, is working on all the different decarbonization levers, so I'm sure you've got some comments there.
Yeah. No, thanks, Amy. So I respectfully disagree with the question. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. What we do at Boeing, and I'm a part of the team that is thinking about the future of aviation. I come at it from sustainability. And so we're always looking over the horizon at what's possible. We look at a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff we look at, we examine it, and then we realize, oh, crap, that won't work because of whatever. And that's what everyone does. That's what we have to continuously do. This is a ridiculously hard problem. But when it comes, to anything that's new, you got to remember the challenge of infrastructure. In Toulouse and Hamburg and Renton and Charleston, around the world, the production lines are making aircraft that burn jet range molecules. Those production lines are going to be making aircraft for a number of years to come, like quite possibly decades. Last aircraft leaves that assembly line, it's going to be in service for 20 years. So that means that we have several decades where we will need fuels that work with today's aircraft. Jet range molecules drop into the system. So when we in Boeing say SAF, and that's why we need SAF. But at the same time, we need to think about what's possible on the other side of 2040, 2050, what we call the Horizon 3. What's possible out there, the airplane after the next airplane. So we're always thinking about that. But other things like operational avoidance to, deal with persistent contrails that are warming the planet. Yeah, you can do that too. Absolutely. Operational procedures to improve fuel efficiency through wind optimal routings, through trajectory-based operations. Well, absolutely. We need that too. And to make the aircraft that are coming off the assembly lines as ridiculously efficient as possible. Yes, all of the above plus carbon removals. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll jump on that because it's a great answer, and I agree with that. I think we're all pretty aligned globally around a vision that is multi-tiered, and there are different levers. And it may be true that in different countries there's slightly different approaches, but I think we have to recall that our sector has a unified vision to reach net zero by 2050 through the long-term aspirational goal of ICAO, and that was reconfirmed again at the ICAO Assembly just a month or two ago. I also want to flag the excellent work of ATAG in really bringing the industry together, take stock of where we are, and also make sure that while there may be indeed different regional, national appetites for different elements, that we keep the whole big picture globally in mind. And that's, I think, our sector is doing very well on that. It's always a challenge, but thanks to organizations like ATAG and ICAO, I think we're keeping a pretty united front.
Thanks very much, Nathalie. And Jimmy, did you want to add anything to that one? Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
I think that's fine. I think I agree with the comments made. I think it's all needed, right? And you're going to have it happen at different paces in different parts of the world and in different ways.
Absolutely. So we're going to round out the panel with a quick fire question for our panelists. And I've seen quite a few questions coming in through the Q&A bucket around skills for our next generation of leaders. So I'm wondering if the panelists can each give us one piece of advice for their younger self for when they join the industry. So if you could tell us what that one piece of advice will be. I'm going to give you all about 1 minute each, so you have to be quick on this one, sorry. And I'm going to pass to Nathalie first.
Okay, so quick fire, I would just say build connections, and that's a great plug for ELSA. I think you guys make the best use of ELSA, because what was foundational for me in my career was to make those connections, those friendships early on. And I still bump into people 20 years later that have moved on to different roles and often in leadership positions. And the fact that you've known these people early on is the key to unlock everything, the partnerships, the collaboration.
Good answer. Thank you, Nathalie. Jimmy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'll echo that. And just a quick little story, Nathalie. I think Haldane might still be on, but I probably first met Haldane, 12, 13, 14 years ago. And I remember having dinner with Haldane and Paul, predecessor at IATA and ATAG in Geneva, along the river, or along the waterfront, I should say, at that point in time. But anyhow, those connections make a difference, right? So, 13 years on, we're still in different roles, but still connected and working together to do this. I would say, for me, be the spark and the change agent within your spheres of influence. That's very much needed, even in the large companies that many of you represent, or in other things that you might be doing, right? We need folks that can push the boundaries of what is achievable and to be those change agents so that we see a different outcome tomorrow, all right, at the end of the day.
Yeah, for me, the thing that I would say is, and this is for all of you, have the courage to say yes. There's going to be occasions, and this happened to me early in my career, where there were opportunities presented to me to do things that, frankly, I had absolutely no right to be doing, but I did them anyway. And so that gave me the breadth of experience I'm able to talk about today. Every one of us has those opportunities. So if you have a mentor, if you have somebody, your boss, anyone else, and they say to you, I've got this project, I've got this problem, I've got this thing. In the back of your mind, you might be thinking, oh my God, what the hell is this? I have absolutely no right to do it. Keep that in the back of your mind, and then have the courage to say, yeah, I'll try it and take it on. And it's through that combination of experiences that you'll gain the knowledge and the breadth of knowledge to really work ridiculously hard problems. So that's my advice. Have the courage to say yes.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Jimmy, as well. If I can kind of link the 2 points that you said, I would say it's not just about saying yes to opportunities, but it's actually also about creating that spark and creating those new opportunities for yourself as well. I think, yeah, being brave enough to kind of come up with something new and step outside of your comfort zone to make it happen is a big part of your development as well. So thank you very much to all of our speakers. That concludes our panel for today, but it does not conclude the session. So please stay on the line.